Season 1 of Marvel Rivals is here, and the game has broken its own records when it comes to players, earnings, and everything. And the game continues to be an overwhelming success, proving that NetEase definitely understand what they need to do to keep people playing, to bring more interest to their game beyond the initial task that they've done excellently of just making a really fun game. And here's the thing, now we have some stats that show that this game is successful in a lot of ways that Overwatch never was. And that's something worth looking into. And while we're at it, there's been a ton of very bad faith arguments around Overwatch and how this game is better or how it's worse or how Overwatch is the best. And I want to dig into some of those things while we're here. So hi, I'm Mug. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're not new here, welcome back. You can't see him, but it's a Jeff t-shirt. Isn't he cute? Let's get into it. Now, Season 1 of Marvel Rivals is proving to be very successful right off the bat. It turns out that releasing 2 characters and letting people know that a month and a half later you're gonna get another 2 characters, and also, let's be honest, we're getting Blade in Season 2. That looks like the story is headed in that direction. That tends to get people excited, along with a new map, a new mode, and of course, a season pass with cosmetics that NetEase continues to prove that they really know what they're doing with cosmetics. I know people get really angry at me like, oh, stop promoting people spending money on microtransactions. Firstly, do whatever you want, whatever makes you happy. You know your own personal finances. And look, full disclosure, I'm not in the Marvel Rivals creator program. I don't get commissions, kickbacks, free skins, nothing. I say that I think these skins are cool because I think they are. And that's what happens if we live in a world where all of your microtransactions have to exist, where there's all these cosmetics. Just make them good. It's not that hard. I've said it before, but after years and years and years of playing Overwatch, when I jumped into Overwatch 2, I didn't spend any money beyond the season pass. And here with Marvel Rivals, I've already spent money on individual skins just because I like them. And this might not mean anything to you, but as an incredibly frugal person, that is saying a lot for me. Pretty much every single cosmetic here is really cool and something that I can imagine people wanting. And of course, the 2 new characters were released in the case of Mr. Fantastic with a skin, the Maker skin, which is the one that everybody would want. Obviously, it's one of the more popular incarnations of Reed Richards. And of course, the Malice skin for the Invisible Woman, which has been the talk of the town for a lot of different reasons. I personally think it just looks really cool. And this all came along with a huge balance patch, and that balance patch is meaningful, at least from the playtime that I've had. People are experimenting with a ton of different things, and Mr. Fantastic, in my opinion, is really the first addition that justifies why this game doesn't have role queue and probably shouldn't, because he's kind of an off-tank. Even though he's a duelist, he's a very strange combination that we'll see how he pans out, if maybe he's underpowered or not. He has very distinct weaknesses as a character and very specific strengths as well. So we'll see when he's played to maximum efficiency exactly where he fits in. And in my opinion, Sue Storm, Invisible Woman, absolutely fantastic design for a support. And I'll talk more about that when we get into the stats. The point is, people are excited. People are logging in to play every day, even if it's just quick match, and people are having a great time doing so. And I personally love to see it. But to keep it all on topic with what I tend to cover on the channel and what I really want to talk about today is the fact that this game is very different from Overwatch. And somehow people keep pretending that they're analogous, that they're one-to-one, that they're gonna work the same, and that the success of one in one aspect means the failure of the other, which to some degree, yes, they definitely share a market there, and there's people pretending that Marvel Rivals hasn't stolen away very serious amounts of players from Overwatch. Let's not kid ourselves. Pretty much everybody who was in the Overwatch scene is now in the Marvel Rivals scene, and if they ever touch Overwatch again, we'll see for how long. That is where the real competition is going to come in. But what I find the most interesting, what you can tell is working about the design of Marvel Rivals compared to something like Overwatch, is what people want to play. Now, for those of you who don't know, historically in Overwatch, as said by the developers themselves, people don't want to play support and people don't want to play tank. It is because of this that something like role queue was implemented. And so the developers have released the list of statistics for the pick rates and win rates of every hero in the game. And keep in mind that they are going to be a little bit biased in the sense that there's a lot of duelists overall, so that portion of the player base is going to be more spread out. But even taking that into account, this is incredible. Of the 33 characters in the game, you need to scroll down to position number 15 to find a duelist in pick rate. The top 14 most played characters in the game are all strategists, so supports or tanks. Jeff, obviously the most popular because he's a good boy. But then you've got things like Venom and Cloak and Dagger, Mantis, Penny Parker, Luna Snow, Thor, Doctor Strange, Rocket Raccoon, Captain America, Hulk, Groot, Magneto, Loki, Adam Warlock, and finally the Punisher. And then at this point, you have Moon Knight, Iron Man, Scarlet Witch, Star-Lord, Hawkeye. Basically every single duelist is under them. And yes, the fact that there are so many duelists means that it's going to be more spread out. And if you took away some duelists, you'd probably see some of them a little bit higher up. But this is the overall player base in quick play, and it's not very different in competitive. You have to reach the 8th spot for Hela to show up there, and then you have a pretty significant jump down until you reach Moon Knight. A much more healthy spread here. And I also think that this is really interesting because there are some DPS here that are basically excluded, with Storm, Black Widow, Wolverine, and Squirrel Girl barely making up anything. It's also fun to see the difference of some characters that are there at the bottom with how high elo works, diamond and above, after you have the bans in place and people are counter picking more. Competitive on console, by the way, not very different, except that of course a hero like Hela that requires very, very good aim on a controller, a lot lower on the list. And Cloak and Dagger, due to the insane consistency of the character, even if you have potato aim, is at the very top. Good thing they buffed Cloak and Dagger, I guess. Get ready for that. Now, why am I bringing all of this up? You might be thinking, what does this have to do with anything? Well, it has to do with the fact that Overwatch and Marvel Rivals are very different in more ways than you think. While the basics of the two games might be similar in that it's a 6v6, as Overwatch has announced that has been a very positive playtest, so they're going to continue with those, so maybe they're both 6v6 games in the future, who knows? They are MOBA characters put into a competitive shooter with objectives, however you want to describe it. They have a lot of differences, especially the importance of Marvel Rivals on things like ultimates and their pushes, on insane amounts of sustain throughout fights, on pivotal use of cooldowns, while still managing to fit in things like certain heroes are very aim dependent. I think that it's overall a much crazier game in the variety of playstyles and compositions, even with how it is at the moment, especially with the introduction of a character like Mr. Fantastic. But what I think is the most important part of Marvel Rivals versus Overwatch is that Rivals actually does what Overwatch kind of promised at the start. I said it before in my review that the appeal of these sorts of games, the ability that they have to bring in so many people to come in and play them and enjoy them, is that compared to something like an Apex Legends or a Rainbow Six, any other game that features heroes of some description, all of them at their center still have being really good at the base mechanics of movement and shooting. You can also take a game like Valorant as an example of that. A game like Overwatch and Marvel Rivals promises to you with the different roles that if you have terrible aim, you can still be incredibly successful by playing other roles. If you've never been good at a specific type of first-person shooter mechanic, you don't have to do it here. You're going to find a playstyle that fits with you, with certain characters almost feeling like they could have their own game. Things like Spider-Man and Venom swing mechanics on their own are just really interesting. But Overwatch kind of really didn't fulfill that as time went on. And I personally blame that on the idea that in Overwatch, a lot of the characters, especially in support and tank, ended up not being that fun or impactful to play. They are necessary. They have to fulfill a job, but then it ends up feeling like a job more than it is you're happy because you get to do that thing well. And that's where skill expression really comes in. When you feel that what you're doing can be done by leaving your brain off, and the only time that you're doing something important is when you break from that role and do something exceptional. And yes, I am thinking of characters like Moira in my head while I say this. That's when you really have people that aren't playing it because they enjoy it. They're playing it because they're addicted to it, because they want to climb, because who knows? And one of the benefits of Marvel Rivals, in the difference of how they design their characters and the power levels being so high for everybody, people obviously like playing tanks and they like playing supports. And that might be because they have an attachment to the character, that might be because it's simply fun to do, or because it just fulfills that dream of playing one of these games but without having to be an FPS pro to do really well. But it actually has depth and skill put into each of those characters so that you can express yourself and enjoy every single match. Even certain characters that I feel like their gameplay pattern overall is very repetitive and straightforward, characters like Mantis, still have a ton of expression and decision making within them. Just by virtue that Mantis as a character is mostly somebody who lets you keep everybody topped up with healing and then do DPS. Or Cloak and Dagger's ability to just say screw it, use their ultimate, jump into the backline and assassinate the enemy healers. The increased power level and the differences in the dynamics of both games means that everybody has something that's really impactful to a fight. And if you learn the ins and outs of each character, you feel like you're doing a good job, and that makes you enjoy playing it in a way that Overwatch really never had to that level, but it equally slowly started taking that away. And for me, I think that that really all joined together in my head when Overwatch released Illari. I don't want to get too in-depth into this, but Illari is a healer that drops a healing pylon and then has a ray of healing. Her damage comes from a hit scan beam rifle. And it basically felt to me like the Overwatch developers just sitting down and saying, yeah, we get it. You want to play DPS, but you can't. So here's Illari. You heal from time to time, but the importance is on placing the automatic healing thing, and then you get to shoot the bad guys. Which, by the way, I think that they did a better job with Juno overall, just saying. But when I look at a character like Illari and I compare them to somebody like the Invisible Woman, the difference in the philosophy couldn't be more clear. A character with 4 different abilities plus their ultimate, and each of them have certain nuance to them. A character that can protect with shields that can also be used to heal herself depending on the position, but it requires somebody else, kind of to give a clear, distinct weakness to her. But that shield can be used in many different ways, as an emergency thing, as a choke point hold thing. She has a huge area of denial ability that does a ton of damage if well placed. She has a short cooldown, incredibly powerful and disruptive CC plus damage with her push and her pull that just has insane playmaking potential across the board. A ton of healing that rewards your aim and your control of her boomerang kind of effect that also comes with a nice bit of damage, and a defensive ultimate that can be combined into some really unique plays depending on how your team wants to take advantage of it and how much time you have to set up. There is so much depth going on with this character that I still haven't mentioned the fact that she goes invisible. And I don't know how true this is for different people, but at the moment, I really don't have an issue queuing for ranked and just filling. I have a ton of fun playing Thor and Hulk. I have a ton of fun playing different DPS characters, especially Mr. Fantastic as an off-tank main. Just kind of suits my playstyle really well. And if I'm playing strategist, I have a ton of fun with characters like Mantis, Cloak and Dagger, and now with Sue Storm, which means that I'm always up to just press Q. I'm always up to play again. I'm willing to roll that dice and have a good time because I know that it doesn't matter what character I play, there's enough of them that I just love so much, and that there is so much depth to explore with them. Doesn't matter the role, that I'm gonna have a great time. And if the future characters come with this sort of complexity attached to them, it's just gonna go bananas. And as I've said before, that means that in the future, every single balance patch is going to completely transform the meta, the game, and make it all fresh and fun as people cycle through different heroes and see just how well designed most of them are. Marvel Rivals has undoubtedly, in my opinion, struck gold in what they're doing. And I think it shows with just how many people are jumping in and playing every single day, people who don't come from Overwatch, people who just play games, and the appeal that it's had on not just our bubble and the people who like it, but it really feels like, to a certain degree, it's lightning striking twice. It feels like when Overwatch came out, not just because of the fun that I'm having with it, that I think a lot of other people are as well, and that a lot of us said when we played the beta back in summer, where we said, it feels like Overwatch 1, it's so much fun. It feels like that outside as well. I feel like everybody's talking about Marvel Rivals. Everybody wants to try it. Everybody wants to play it. People I know who know nothing about video games and don't care about them are like, yeah, I have a PS5, but I don't use it, and I downloaded Marvel Rivals. Holy hell, is that game fun. I just play it every day now. Do you have any tips? Do you like the game? And then I'm just like, bro, I don't play video games. Don't look at me like that. Are you gonna tell me you like to share your hobbies with coworkers? Leave me alone. And while maybe nostalgia is clouding my mind, I feel like it's not at the same fever pitch that Overwatch was with all of its build-up, with just how impactful that was when it was releasing, everybody talking about the cinematics, people saying that they wanted a movie or a TV show of Overwatch even before the game was out. I think Marvel Rivals is on a steady rise. Will it fall? Anything is possible, but really, I don't think you can keep calling it a honeymoon. In any case, I've been Mug. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the video, that it brought a new perspective to the whole conversation around this, that it was fun to watch. And yes, and Marvel Rivals. I will keep talking about the game for as long as I keep enjoying it, but don't worry, I'm going to do my best to cover all of the news and everything that I normally do with all sorts of games. Gotta keep everybody happy, I hope. Especially the patrons up on the $1 patron wall, which support me at $1. That's the only tier. And the wall is here. If you want to join, you know, it's in the description below. Thank you so much. I'm eternally grateful to all of you and to everybody for watching. I've been Mug. Go out there, enjoy some great video games. Maybe that's Marvel Rivals, maybe it's something else, but just have a good time. And I'll see you again very soon.